I think it's absolutely extraordinary that any right-minded thinking parent should believe would have been an alternative.
The royal family is famously private, shielding their struggles from the public eye, but recently, Princess Anne dropped a revelation that has sent shockwaves through the palace and beyond. What bombshell did she just reveal about Prince William's youngest child? Could this disclosure reshape the family's dynamics, or even change the course of young Prince Louis's life? Stick with us as we uncover the full story behind Princess Anne's startling revelation and explore the ripple effects it might have across the monarchy. All eyes are now firmly fixed on Prince Louis, a child born into one of the world's most photographed families, whose presence, or perhaps quiet absence, has captured public attention in ways few expected. Prince Louis is known less for his public appearances than for his calm, understated demeanour, which stands in stark contrast to his siblings. It's not just a physical absence that people have noticed, though he sometimes blends into the background. It's his quietness, the distance he keeps from cameras and crowds, and the way he observes rather than performs that has fueled endless speculation. The youngest child of Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, Louis was once described as a spirited, lively toddler, the type to pull funny faces on palace balconies, react dramatically to noise, and freely engage with the crowd. Yet over time, something shifted. Prince George matured into a composed, confident young figure, clearly preparing for a future in the spotlight. Princess Charlotte emerged as poised, expressive and charming, her public presence confident beyond her years. Louis, however, began to retreat, and when he did appear, he often seemed serious, introspective, or intensely focused on a single object rather than the world around him. Social media and royal watchers alike have asked the same question for years. Why does Prince Louis seem so different? Official statements maintain that nothing unusual is happening. Prince William and Catherine have long emphasised their desire for their children to have a normal upbringing, shielded from the intense scrutiny of the press. They limit public appearances, carefully control exposure, and regulate photography during official events. Yet, even with these protections, comparisons are inevitable. Prince George is increasingly visible at public events, preparing for the future. Princess Charlotte is captured smiling, waving, and interacting with the public with remarkable poise. Louis, by contrast, is often off to the side. He rarely leads in photographs, doesn't wave as readily, and doesn't engage with the cameras or mimic his siblings' rehearsed composure. He often stays close to trusted adults, quiet, sometimes stiff, sometimes distant. For many parents, Louis's behaviour is familiar, even comforting. It's the pattern of a child who experiences the world differently, rather than one in crisis. Sensitivity to loud environments, a preference for staying near familiar faces, limited engagement with crowds, and a tendency to focus inward. These are traits some children naturally exhibit. None of these behaviours are diagnostic on their own. But in the age of social media, patterns are often interpreted as signals, especially when history provides context. Autism, for instance, is not unprecedented in the royal family. Lady Louise Windsor, daughter of Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, is publicly confirmed to be autistic. Her parents have discussed neurodiversity with respect and honesty, highlighting early intervention and the importance of understanding each child's unique needs. Lady Louise grew up largely outside the public spotlight, shielded from excessive media exposure and allowed to develop at her own pace, appearing publicly only on her own terms. The parallels between her upbringing and Louis's increasingly low-profile presence are striking, though not identical. They suggest a strategy. When a royal child needs additional structure, space, or protection, the palace adapts quietly, without public announcements, leaving gaps for the public to notice. Perhaps the most emotionally striking element of the speculation around Louis isn't his behaviour alone, but his sister Charlotte's consistent vigilance. Cameras have repeatedly captured Charlotte subtly positioning herself between Louis and the public, guiding him, correcting him, and offering quiet reassurance. In multiple public moments, Charlotte behaves less like a sibling and more like a guardian. Royal analysts have pointed out that she often holds his hand while moving through crowds, signals him when to pause or step forward, and stays aware of his surroundings, stepping in whenever he appears overwhelmed. Some dismiss these actions as coincidence, while others attribute them to natural sibling instinct. Yet parents of neurodivergent children recognize it immediately. This is learned protectiveness. Children rarely take on such a role unless they sense a genuine need, and Charlotte does it consistently and deliberately. One reason these rumors persist and resonate is that autism is no longer a taboo condition. It is increasingly recognized as a spectrum, a difference rather than a limitation. Supporters argue that if Louis were neurodivergent, it would align seamlessly with William and Catherine's advocacy for mental health awareness, inclusivity, and child well-being. They've repeatedly emphasized emotional development, early childhood support, and treating children as individuals rather than extensions of parental or societal expectations. Yet Lewis's calm, deliberate, and highly observant nature leaves observers questioning, could it indicate something deeper? And how does it fit within historical patterns in the royal family? Years before Louis became a focus of speculation, a seemingly minor comment drew attention in hindsight. Meghan Markle, adjusting to life in the royal family, reportedly joked that Catherine had baby brain. At the time, it was dismissed as a harmless quip about pregnancy forgetfulness. But in retrospect, with Lewis's quiet presence, many are now asking whether baby brain was simply a socially acceptable phrase for something more nuanced. Catherine has long been described as reserved, controlled, emotionally contained, and highly structured. She has earned praise for her composure, her ability to perform flawlessly in public without visible cracks, and her unwavering adherence to routine and protocol. She does not improvise impulsively, and she thrives when expectations are clear and variables are limited. Modern observers increasingly recognize that many of these traits, when viewed through the lens of neurodiversity, are not merely discipline. They could also reflect characteristics seen in women on the autism spectrum. For decades, autism was defined narrowly through a male lens: social withdrawal, apparent lack of empathy, and visible communication difficulties. Today, our understanding has shifted dramatically. We now know that many women on the spectrum are highly functional, deeply empathetic, socially capable, and remarkably skilled at masking traits that might go unnoticed. Catherine's well-documented precision, emotional containment, and consistency might, in a modern context, hint at a form of neurodivergence that was never previously recognized or discussed. The question now lingers in the public consciousness. Could Prince Louis's quiet demeanor, careful observation, and intense focus be a reflection of a neurodivergent identity following a path already seen in Lady Louise? And could Catherine's structured, composed approach be both a personal strength and a model for supporting her children in ways that respect their unique needs? These questions may never be officially answered, but the conversation they spark is essential, reflecting broader awareness of neurodiversity, empathy, and the evolving ways society views differences in behavior, particularly within the most scrutinized family in the world. For decades, autism was narrowly defined through a male lens: social withdrawal, lack of empathy, and obvious communication difficulties. But modern understanding has shifted dramatically. We now know that many women on the spectrum are highly functional, deeply empathetic, socially capable, and extremely skilled at masking. Could it be that Meghan Markle perceived something that others didn't? Meghan entered the royal family from a world that moves fast: Hollywood, media scrutiny, improvisation, and emotional openness. She is expressive, reactive, and verbally fluid, able to read a room in an instant and respond instinctively. Kate, by contrast, operates differently: methodical, controlled, reserved. Meghan, encountering a Kate who seemed rigid, overwhelmed, or slow to adjust during pregnancy and early motherhood, may have reached for the closest socially acceptable explanation: baby brain. It's a gentle, polite euphemism, one that softens her observation and makes it seem temporary, almost forgettable. But what if Meghan sensed something deeper, a pattern that she didn't yet have the language or the permission to articulate. If Catherine carries traits on the spectrum, whether fully or partially expressed, it could mean that Prince Louis might display a more visible expression of those same traits. Autism and related neurodivergent characteristics often run in families. A parent may manage them subtly, blending in with the world and masking any differences, while a child may express them more openly or intensely, especially in high-stimulus environments like public life. This could explain why Prince Louis appears quieter, more reserved, and carefully monitored during public appearances. And it could also shed light on Charlotte's protective behaviour toward her younger brother. Siblings often mirror adaptive family strategies, stepping in instinctively when one child shows vulnerability or needs emotional support. Charlotte's attentiveness could be instinctive, learned from watching her parents, or more likely, a combination of both. It is precise, consistent, and deliberate. A small window into how this family navigates challenges quietly behind the palace walls. Now, if Meghan's words hinted at traits present in the family, it begs another question. How might this connect to the hidden challenges Catherine herself has faced with her health? A private battle, unknown to the public. In mid-January 2024, Kensington Palace released a carefully worded statement. Catherine, Princess of Wales, had undergone planned abdominal surgery at the London clinic. The statement emphasised the procedure's success and reassured the public that it was non-cancerous. It also noted that she would remain hospitalised for up to 2 weeks and that she would not resume public duties until after Easter. While reassuring, the details stood out. Senior royals rarely announce recovery timelines unless the situation is significant. As January moved into February, something felt off. Catherine didn't appear publicly, and no photographs were released. Not even staged shots to show her recovering. A total visual silence descended, and rumours began to spread online. Some speculated that complications had arisen from surgery. Others suggested her marital life with Prince William was the hidden cause. The theorists were off the mark. The truth was far more serious. On March 22nd, 2024, Catherine broke her silence with a recorded video message. She revealed that cancer had been discovered following her surgery and that she was undergoing preventative chemotherapy. She described the diagnosis as a shock, sharing honestly how difficult it was to navigate the news while still physically recovering from surgery. The palace had remained silent because Catherine requested privacy. She wanted to explain the situation to her children before the public heard anything. Her choice of words was careful. Preventative chemotherapy suggested early detection, but confirmed that the cancer was serious enough to require aggressive treatment. Catherine did not disclose the type, stage, or prognosis of the cancer. The palace reiterated that these details would remain private. From late March through summer 2024, Catherine's treatment continued largely out of public view. The lack of information itself became a story. Chemotherapy rarely fits neat timelines, side effects fluctuate, energy rises and crashes unpredictably. Recovery from abdominal surgery, combined with cancer treatment, magnifies the strain, even for someone known for composure like Catherine. By late 2024, when Catherine reappeared briefly in public footage, she looked different. Her weight had dropped noticeably, and though she remained composed, there was an unmistakable change. Early 2025 brought a sigh of relief. Catherine announced she was in remission. While remission is not the same as a cure, it means the cancer is no longer detectable. It marked the end of active treatment, though monitoring and vigilance remained essential. She openly acknowledged that recovery was not linear and that the post-treatment phase carried its own challenges. Even in remission, Catherine did not immediately resume a full public schedule. She prioritised rest, managing a post-cancer reality where every minor ache could trigger concern, and lifestyle adjustments were constant. Meanwhile, as Catherine fought this private battle, the public was again reminded of King Charles's own health challenges. In early 2024, Buckingham Palace announced that the King required a corrective procedure for an enlarged prostate, a condition common for men of his age. The statement framed it as benign, and the King temporarily postponed public engagements to recover. But just a month later, the palace released another statement that stunned royal observers. During treatment for the prostate condition, doctors identified a separate form of cancer. The palace carefully clarified that it was not prostate cancer, but beyond that, details were scarce. The king had already begun treatment and remained positive, continuing state business where possible. Yet the reality was stark. Britain's reigning monarch had cancer. Unlike Catherine's announcement, which was gradual and managed, this revelation hit abruptly. No timeline was given regarding discovery or severity, leaving the public in a swirl of speculation. What was clear, the diagnosis had emerged unexpectedly during medical intervention for another condition, a reminder of how sudden and unpredictable cancer can be, even under careful medical supervision. Updates remained minimal. Buckingham Palace did not provide regular medical briefings. Instead, information trickled out indirectly through cancelled engagements, scheduling shifts, or brief confirmations. The treatment continued, but the lack of detail fueled public curiosity and speculation. Historically, this aligns with how the royal family has managed cancer news. Privacy and limited disclosure have been hallmarks of royal communications on serious health issues. For decades, rumours surrounded Queen Elizabeth's own health. In her later years, speculation persisted about whether she had battled cancer, though the palace consistently attributed her declining mobility to age-related issues. After her death in September 2022, biographers and commentators reignited discussions, suggesting cancer may have been involved, either undiagnosed or quietly managed. By mid-2024, reports confirmed that King Charles was responding well to treatment, bringing a cautious sense of relief but underscoring the fragility of health even for royals. Even as the king resumed limited public duties, observers immediately noticed physical changes, weight loss, fatigue, and an undeniable shift in demeanour. But the palace maintained its cautious optimism. Treatment was ongoing, progress reportedly steady, yet one thing was striking: there was no clearly defined endpoint. Unlike other public cancer disclosures that conclude with announcements of remission or successful treatment, King Charles's condition remained open-ended. Statements consistently referenced continuing treatment rather than recovery, leaving the public and royal watchers alike with lingering uncertainty. This ambiguity signals a long-term management approach rather than a finite course of care. As 2024 gave way to 2025, King Charles continued to balance treatment with his royal duties, appearing selectively at events while fiercely guarding his medical privacy. Whether the cancer will fully recede, remain under management, or shape the later years of his reign is unknown. Yet, one undeniable truth emerged. The diagnosis followed a familiar royal pattern: discovered incidentally, disclosed sparingly, and carried privately, touching both sides of the family. With hereditary concerns quietly introduced into the royal bloodline, conversations naturally turned to the future. Could the next generation face similar health vulnerabilities? How worried was Princess Anne about what this might mean for the younger royals? These questions weighed heavily within palace circles. Illness in the monarchy is never evaluated purely for its human cost. It's always considered in terms of duty, succession, and institutional stability. Princess Anne, renowned for her realism and long-term thinking, reportedly regarded these developments with measured concern. On one side, there is the king. King Charles III's cancer diagnosis, though details were minimal, has created undeniable questions about hereditary implications for the family. Cancer does not always follow predictable patterns, yet its recurrence within a lineage naturally invites concern, especially against the backdrop of increasing public attention and medical transparency. On the other side, Catherine, Princess of Wales, faced her own battle. Her diagnosis, treatment, and eventual remission introduced another layer of complexity, illustrating that both families connected to the future monarch have confronted serious health challenges relatively early in life. For Princess Anne, this is not a matter of speculation or sentimental worry. It is a question of institutional endurance. Anne has long been the royal most focused on continuity, preparation, and the mechanics that sustain the monarchy. She has witnessed abdications, divorce scandals, sudden deaths, and collapses in public trust, giving her an acute understanding of how quickly a stable system can strain under pressure. From her perspective, The concern is not merely whether William's children might face serious illness in the future, but how such a scenario would ripple through succession and the functioning of the monarchy itself. Prince William occupies a uniquely precarious position. He is more than heir apparent. He is the stabilizing bridge between an aging monarch and the next generation still in early childhood. If Catherine were to experience prolonged illness, and if one or more of their children were to face significant health challenges, the cumulative burden could severely affect his ability to govern effectively. Reports suggest this is exactly what troubles Princess Anne, not because the scenario is probable, but because it is conceivable. Royal history provides cautionary examples. Monarchs distracted or constrained by personal and familial health crises have historically struggled to balance public duty with private responsibilities. If William were forced to divide his attention among the crown, a seriously ill spouse, and children facing potential health crises, the pressure on him would be unprecedented in the modern monarchy. Princess Anne, acutely aware of the public's limited tolerance for vulnerability at the top, understands the stakes. Compassion can quickly transform into scrutiny, and scrutiny into destabilization. A monarch perceived as distracted, even unfairly, becomes a focal point for doubt. The concern extends beyond cancer itself. Any serious childhood illness demands attention, emotional bandwidth, and privacy. Such circumstances reshape priorities, forcing difficult decisions about exposure, duties, and contingency planning. The situation is further complicated by the age of William's children. George, Charlotte, and Louis are still developing their identities under intense public observation. Even a hint of hereditary vulnerability risks subjecting them to invasive speculation long before they are equipped to navigate it. For this reason, the palace never publicly acknowledges such concerns, yet insiders confirm that these conversations happen behind closed doors. The unavoidable question remains: how much strain can one individual endure before the institution itself begins to bend under the weight of responsibility? For Prince William, the past 2 years have been unlike any other. To the public, he appears composed, dutiful, and capable, balancing appearances, charitable work, and state obligations with polished precision. Yet, behind the tailored suits and carefully measured smiles lies a far more complex reality. The constant pressure to remain unshakable while those closest to him face serious health challenges creates a private burden invisible to the public eye. When Catherine, Princess of Wales, was diagnosed with cancer following her planned abdominal surgery, the news was more than alarming. It was a personal and institutional crisis wrapped in one. For William, the weight was crushing. As the father of 3 young children and the heir to the throne, he suddenly found himself walking a razor's edge, struggling to balance 2 immense responsibilities: his duty to the monarchy and his devotion to his family. Almost immediately, he began stepping back from some public engagements, cancelling ceremonial appearances that once might have defined his week. But these absences were far from retreats. They were calculated choices, deliberate acts to protect the family who needed him most. Every skipped event, every postponed engagement was a reminder of what truly mattered behind the gilded walls of royalty. This protective instinct wasn't new, it echoed decades-old trauma. William carries the memory of losing his mother, Princess Diana, in a sudden public tragedy, a loss the world watched unfold with unrelenting scrutiny. That experience shaped him profoundly. He knows all too well how grief can be magnified under the gaze of millions. Every sigh, every expression, every unguarded moment is subject to interpretation, often misunderstanding. Diana's death taught him that personal suffering becomes exponentially heavier when the world watches and misinterprets every move. That lesson guided him as Catherine faced her own health crisis, forming a blueprint of private management, careful shielding, and strategic disclosure. But such vigilance comes at a cost. The burden of protecting his loved ones falls almost entirely on William's shoulders. His role as heir demands stability, not only for the monarchy, but also for the institution itself. And yet, that stability often requires personal isolation. He cannot fully share his fears, not even with those closest to him, because the stakes are monumental. The monarchy is unforgiving, and vulnerability, even when deserved, can ripple unpredictably through the public's perception. He has a sibling, Prince Harry, who might once have been a confidant during childhood and adolescence, but distance, historical friction, and relentless public scrutiny have fractured that bond. Any solace he might have drawn from brotherly counsel now exists only in fleeting, fragmented glimpses, a reminder that certain forms of support can be limited by circumstance, no matter how close the blood. For someone charged with the continuity of a nation, the loneliness of unshareable burdens is profound. Unlike private citizens, William cannot delegate these worries or even confide fully in advisors, whose expertise lies in public duties rather than emotional guidance. Even among household staff and senior royals, discussions of fear or vulnerability are constrained by protocol, tradition, and the unspoken rules of restraint. There is a delicate choreography to every word, every gesture, every moment, and the stakes are impossibly high. Adding to the weight is the health of his children. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis are still young, still shaping their identities, yet William cannot ignore the possibility that one or more of them could face serious illness. The thought magnifies an already immense pressure. The dual task of preparing to lead a nation while remaining emotionally present for his family. The intensity of this responsibility is unlike anything most can imagine. The need to be simultaneously stoic, caring, vigilant, and emotionally available, all under public observation. And yet, in fleeting moments, the toll becomes visible. Observers have noted subtle shifts in posture, fatigue that surfaces even during brief public appearances, and an intensity in his interactions with his children that speaks to the private vigilance he must maintain. These glimpses reveal the human side of a figure often seen as untouchable. Behind the polished suits and carefully curated public persona lies a father navigating profound private fears while balancing duties that extend far beyond his home. Those closest to him describe William's resilience not as fearlessness, but as careful management. He faces the same human truths as anyone: fear, grief, isolation, and longing for connection. But his choices carry consequences far beyond the personal. Every decision to prioritize one role over another ripples through the family, the lineage, and an institution centuries in the making. The weight of these decisions is constant, unrelenting, and invisible to the public eye. Within these private moments of reflection, he remains deeply alone. Memories of loss, the ongoing threat of illness in his loved ones, and the responsibility for a future that may rest solely on his shoulders, combine to form an unspoken burden few can comprehend. Each act of discretion, every sacrifice, every silent moment of fear is part of a delicate balancing act, keeping the monarchy stable while shielding those he loves from the glare of scrutiny. And now, the question that haunts observers and royal insiders alike: is Prince Louis's quiet, reserved nature simply personality, or could it be hereditary? With both Catherine and King Charles facing serious health challenges, can William truly balance the immense demands of duty with the needs of his family? The stakes are immense, and the answers are far from simple. William's private life illustrates the fragile human side of monarchy. It reveals how grief, fear, and responsibility intertwine with duty. It shows the extraordinary lengths a father will go to protect his children while maintaining the stability of an entire institution. And it reminds the world that behind every public smile, there is a man carrying unimaginable burdens with quiet strength. So, what do you think? Could these traits be hereditary? Or is it simply the personalities of George, Charlotte, and Louis shining through? How do you see William managing to balance duty and family in these extraordinary circumstances? Share your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you. Don't forget to like and share if this story captured your attention, and subscribe to stay updated on all the latest royal developments. Be sure to check out the next video on your screen. It dives even deeper into the hidden stories behind the palace walls. You won't want to miss it.